This is the Harry Potter Diagon Alley board game. It was produced by Mattel in 2001, a full year before the theatrical release of Harry Potter and the Sorcerer's Stone, which makes this a unique little nostalgic treat as the art style is actually more reflective of the iconic pastel book cover art that we were familiar with up until this point, and many of the other collectibles produced after the production of the movie follow the movie's production design much more closely than the book's art. So this is a unique little piece of memorabilia perfect for Potter fans from the early years. So sit back, grab yourself a Snackio! How's that for product placement? And let's dive right into this review, starting with this gorgeous box art. Now, the box art is actually just the board art placed in the center, and you'll notice that it actually shows the center of Diagon Alley here without the draw card pile space depicted. I don't think that this is the strongest game box art that I've ever seen. Yes, it shows what the game board looks like, but if you were not a Potter fan, you might not understand what the significance behind Diagon Alley is, or why that would be important to the gameplay. However, if you flip the box over and you take a look at the close-up of the game board and read the description that's included, it'll give you a pretty nice overview. It also features a nice picture of some kids having fun playing the game. It's a lift-off top box that features a vacuum-formed organizer as well as a cardboard space saver that keep the quarter-fold game board and all of the game's components well stowed. However, I will say the vacuum-formed game organizer had very tight tolerances on the game pieces, which was a little bit frustrating because in some spots it caused premature wear on the components as you were taking them out and putting them back into the organizer. When we look at the game board itself, it features this gorgeous pastel art that is much more reminiscent of the book covers than it is of the production design of the movie series, which is, in my opinion, a very good thing. It makes it a unique piece of Potter memorabilia. You're also going to notice that throughout the game box and the board and all of the cards, all the accoutrements, they don't show any depictions of any of the characters from the iconic series, which is kind of surprising, but it allows you to take on the role of a young Hogwarts student. And while taking on that role, players will each get one of 6 mover pieces. These just have little crescent moons and stars on them. I think it's fun, very whimsical here. Players are going to navigate their player pieces clockwise around the Diagon Alley inner track of the board, moving from store to store, purchasing up school supplies in the hopes of getting all 6 that they need to fill their little trunk to start their school year at Hogwarts. The first student to get all 6 school supplies they need and land back at the Leaky Cauldron wins. Along the way, they will be trying not to land themselves in Knockturn Alley, this darker colored track on the outside periphery of the board. It kind of serves almost like the jail space in Monopoly. While players are stuck in Knockturn Alley, they are unable to collect any money from Gringotts to help them buy school supplies, use any of the spells that they have at their disposal, or actually it does kind of help, they can't have spells cast on them. So that's nice, but they'll have to try to roll doubles to let themselves out at one of the various gates, or if they fail to roll doubles, they'll have to navigate all the way around Knockturn Alley and come out right at the Leaky Cauldron and start the game all over again. Now, this can seem like a massive setback, but the amount of random chance and strategy involved in this game means that you can be stuck on a full lap around Knockturn Alley and still make a comeback. In fact, during one of my play tests, that's exactly what happened to the winning player. Now, players at the outset of the game will each be dealt 2 of these spell cards here. These have these gold parchment backs on them and have things like access to the Floo network, which are all the chimneys that interlink all of the stores. If a player wishes to use the Floo network, they take a single d6 die and declare if they think the outcome is going to be odd or even and roll. If they get it right, they can go to the store of their choosing. If they get it wrong, they have to travel counterclockwise around the stores connected to the Floo network, so not the spaces, and land in a random store. So it's kind of like in the books when Harry says the wrong thing and ends up going to the wrong location the first time he uses the Floo system. You can also use these spells to hamper other players by costing them a turn, or sometimes stealing school supplies out of their trunk and placing it in your own. There are also purple Havoc magic cards that you might accidentally draw from the draw pile, and these can definitely cause chaos. They can banish you to Knockturn Knockturn Alley, cause you to lose a turn, lose your own school supplies, or even lose some of your money. However, there are rare instances where it will also send you directly to Gringotts, allow you to collect your money, and move to a store of your choosing. So equal parts good and equal parts bad. One standout piece from this game, the currency. I love the little plastic coins that they give players in lieu of, say, like paper money, because in the Potter universe, it's all coins that they use. You got coppers. I can't even remember the proper names of all of them. Their sickles are one of them, but they've got copper, silver, and gold pieces, and they all have wonderful sculpts on them. They're really fun to hold. They're very lightweight. They feel like play money, but you don't need anything fancier than that. I just like how they add to the immersion of the game. Now, adding further difficulty to the game, each store location will be stocked with specific school supplies, but there will be some artificial scarcity based on how many players are in the game. So the store will always be stocked with one fewer of the school supplies it carries than what can supply all of the players in a given game. So if there are 6 players, each store will only have 5 of each supply that they sell. So this encourages players to be relatively aggressive when it comes to either holding the competition back from making their purchase or outright stealing the supplies that they already have in their trunk. Now, there is a simplified rule set for younger players that omits this and the Havoc spells, the purple spells that would be included in the draw pile, to make the game a little bit easier. So this game is accessible for both younger players and older players and allows you to select the difficulty so that you don't suffer too much frustration. Now, when we look at the rules are printed on 20-pound bond paper, unsealed. It's tri-folded, black and white. Pretty standard fare, nothing to really write home about. I would have liked to have seen better illustrations of some of the game boards and how to set things up, because many things that you do on this game board are described and not shown, like how you're supposed to place the school supplies. And when they say you're using the Flu network, they mention the chimneys as being actual spaces. But when you look at the game board art, there's a little bit of ambiguity to that. Is the space above the chimney where the smoke is in Knockturn Alley, or are you actually going to the chimney's top flue? I mean, how is this going to work? So some small guidance would have been welcome, but honestly, if you use your intuition, it's not really a big deal. Overall, I think this is a really fun piece of memorabilia for any Potter fan to track down. I actually had to get 2 different copies of the game and kit bash them to get enough parts to make it playable. But on my end, it was actually well worth the hunt. I'm very glad that I found this, and I think it's a great party game. I will say the minimum player count is 3. However, I did try playing a 2-player game by having each of the 2 players take control of 2 students each, and I found it to be just as fun as playing with the proper amount of people. So you can do a 2-player game if you're up to the challenge of keeping track of the turn order for 4 players as opposed to 2. So it does make the game relatively accessible. But overall, lots of fun. The art is definitely worth it. For me, board art and box art are huge selling points. The board art for this alone would have been worth the purchase price, in my opinion. It's definitely worth hunting down just for that. It reminds me of 1313 Dead End Drive's pastel art style. However, this isn't quite as bold, and this falls more in line with the pre-established art style from the covers of the Harry Potter books. So some of the lines are a little bit sharper, but it has that same vibe of mixing warmer and cooler colors to make a more welcoming portion of the board, be it that Diagon Alley is nice and lit with this golden light. It looks very comfortable, whereas Knockturn Alley has the greens, the blues, the purples. It looks really dark, but in that sort of nostalgic cartoony way, which I love. So definitely a cool piece of Potter fan memorabilia. I want to thank my channel members, the Couch Potatoes, who make awesome videos like this possible. You guys rock. Thanks to Meets Expectations for making this video possible. Check out my affiliate link in the description if you want to get yourself a tasty little treat for when you're playing game night with your friends. And thank you for joining me today. I love doing these awesome reviews with you, and I can't wait to do the next one.